Good evening. Welcome to the West Jordan Planning Commission meeting for December 20th, 2016. We have all 7 members of the commission present this evening. We have 3 items on our calendar for tonight. One is our consent calendar, which includes the minutes from our December 6th meeting. Commissioner Skoski.
Thank you. Move to approve the minutes as contained in the packet.
Motion by Commissioner Skoski, second by Commissioner Hanson. Discussion to the motion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any approved? Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Then we have 2 public hearings tonight. The first one is South Jordan Zone 7 and 8 water tank, considering a future land use map amendment. And a couple of rezones, I think, in there to split that up just a little bit. South Jordan City is the applicant. We'll turn the time over to you.
Thank you for your time, Chairman, members of the Commission. So by way of introduction, my name is Ken Short. I'm with South Jordan City's Development Services Department. In particular, I work in the engineering division with the Capital Improvement Program. And I have Mike Chambers here from Hanson Allen Lewis, who's providing the design on the project, and we'll be here to answer maybe any technical questions you may have. Just as a little bit of background on the project, and I'll try and be as brief as I can. We have known for some time that we need an additional storage reservoir for our zones, water zones 7 and 8 in the city of South Jordan, and began looking for a location. The location kind of is set by elevation. It's got to be at a certain elevation in order to provide adequate pressures for the city. So that actually put us outside of our political boundary. We needed to be west of U-111, and so when we were looking at properties, the property in question became appealing due to its location, both geographically, elevation-wise, and its proximity to the existing Jordan Valley water tank on the other side of the highway there. So the project basically consists of a circular reservoir tank, 5 million gallon tank, with a buried valve with it as well. And the tank will sit, it's a buried tank, but it will stick above ground, about 14 feet on the north end, about 18 feet on the south end. It's just due to hitting those elevations that I mentioned earlier. We plan on landscaping the site similar to the water tanks on the other side of New Bingham Highway. Be large cobble, drought-resistant plants, shrubs, and trees. We feel that the project provides a benefit, in particular to the residents of South Jordan, but also to the community as a whole in this part of the valley. It will provide fire flow storage, emergency storage, as well as providing adequate pressures for our residents. And so with that, I kind of turn the time over to you guys to ask any questions that you may have.
Any questions for the applicant? Doesn't look like it at this point. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Turn it over to you, Ray.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Commission, again, this request is a rezoning request and an amendment to the future land use map. Up on the screen shows where the proposed tank site is going to be located. They had initially come in and wanted to rezone just that piece of property to public facilities, but the issue was that it left a kind of a remnant parcel there on the west side of the property. And so what we needed to do is the zone on the entire acreage is currently A20, but the property owner still wants to farm it. So I think as far as land use is concerned, we just would like to change that to an A1, which is still a holding zone, and then rezone that to an agriculture, an A1 zone. As far as the tank site, it's 3 acres, and we're looking at changing the future land use map to public facilities on that, and then also the zoning to public facilities zone. This is this is the current, the existing future land use map. Right now, it shows it was low density residential, but in going back to the overhead and looking at the adjoining uses to the south, there's a, it's bordered by the old and new Bingham Highway. You've got a cemetery on the south side. There's a settling pond to the southwest. There are 2 water tanks to the north of New Bingham Highway. So we really don't see this as developing as residential in the future. I think this is a good location for a facility such as this. So our recommendation is for approval, or that the Planning Commission forward a positive recommendation to the council to approve those changes.
I don't know, I can see putting a house there.
So this is the far southwest corner of the city then? That actually is the southwest corner of the city.
The yellow line up there just shows the city boundary.
So, I mean, in the long term, what do we actually see for that piece of property in that triangle?
Down the road, it could be consolidated. It's large enough to where you could put a use on like a gas station or something. It's still large enough to be able to accommodate that, but they'd have to go through, probably consolidate those corner pieces as well with it and then develop that. So we think it's large enough to develop something else. There are a couple of large water lines on the east side of that, so it may make it a little tricky, but you can still put parking lots over utilities.
Would it be feasible in the future to ever throw another water tank on that spot? Is that big enough on that .88?
Yeah, I think it's big enough. It wouldn't be a large water tank, but
Yeah, as Ray mentioned, there's a bunch of underground utilities in that area, and so that may impact the usability of that property. But if South Jordan's anything like our city, we, as we continue to see more and more growth, there's more and more need for water, and so there is an opportunity for them to possibly use that other piece, but I can't speak to that.
Any other questions for staff? Nothing like it. This was agendized as a public hearing. Just as a quick introduction to our public hearing process. As the public hearing is open, anybody who would like to comment on this specific item is invited up to the microphone. If you would kindly give us your name and contact information so staff can follow up with you on any of your questions or concerns there. You will have 3 minutes to make your comments. As the 3 minutes approach, you'll hear a little buzzer up here if you would kindly wrap up your comments at that point. And on that note, I'll open the public hearing for this particular item. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission. Commissioner Hanson.
Just a side note, it would be really easy for me to make this really hard on Mr. Short, since I worked with him for about 20 years. But I will refrain from doing so.
Commissioner Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Based on the findings set forth in the staff report and upon evidence and explanations received today, I move that the Planning Commission forward a positive recommendation to the City Council to amend the future land use map from low density residential to public facilities, and from low density residential to public facilities to agricultural for property located at approximately 8,000 West Old Bingham Highway.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Skoski, second by Commissioner Hanson. Discussion of the motion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0.
Take the second one. Based on the findings set forth in the staff report and upon evidence and explanations received today, I move that the Planning Commission forward a positive recommendation to the City Council to rezone approximately 3.112 acres of property from an A20 agricultural zone to public facilities zone, and 2.263 acres of property from an A20 agricultural zone to an A1 agricultural zoning district for property located at approximately 8,000 West Old Bingham Highway.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Sikoski, second by Commissioner Hanson. Discussion to the motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. The last item on our agenda is the Cobley subdivision, considering a future land use map amendment and a rezone to R112, River Oaks Estates. Robert Barris is the applicant. Is the applicant present? Turn the time over to you.
Thank you. My name is Robert Barris. Do you need address or anything like that? Planning Commission, the city staff, I appreciate you allowing me to be here. Next May will be 25 years that I've been running my business of doing developing. I do mostly recreational property, but I do subdivisions and commercial also, mostly in Utah, a little bit in Arizona. Approximately 14 years ago, I was approached to do a subdivision up here, and just down the street here, River Oaks Estates, approximately 20 acres and approximately 50 lots. And it's grateful to do it. In my 25 years of history, working with the city of West Jordan has been the most difficult that I've ever had to deal with. When I did River Oaks Estates, a 50-lot subdivision, zoned R112, I came to the city, I asked for no zone changes, and I asked for nothing from the city. It took 4 years to get that approved through the staff and through the Planning Commission and City Council. At one point, I went over 3 months without a phone call or an email return from part of your staff. I came in to your department one afternoon to meet with your engineering department. They told me that he was busy and asked if I could get back, and I said I've been waiting for 3 months, and I chose to stay right there. And they said he might be busy the whole day, and I said that's fine, I'll stay till 5 o'clock, and then when you close the doors, I'll be back at 8 in the morning. Within 10 minutes, I had an appointment with your engineering staff. That is one example of what it took me to get River Oaks through. And the process, right where the site is up on the property, we found out that UDOT wanted the road widened and aligned. And we also found out at the exact same time from your gracious staff that there was a bond placed for the widening and the improvement of that road by River Oaks Apartments across the street. And so I was put on notice that I didn't have to do anything and we'll work it out as a staff. And within a few months, I was notified that they're not going to go after the bond and they're not going to go after the developer. They're going to place the burden on my shoulders. I came in, knocked on the homeowner's door. He said he was looking to meet me for the last 20 years. He offered a piece of property that appraised at $172,000. He offered it for sale for $550,000. We had no choice but to buy that property. We had no choice but to put another $500,000 into that improvement in order to get River Oaks improved. I was also, during that 4-year process, told that I had to put a gray water system in, and that cost me probably about 4 months of engineering and another $60,000 to $90,000 of engineering and over $200,000 of installation. That was part of the 4 years. When I did the subdivision and after the approval process, I came back to your planning commission, and I came back, not to your planning commission, I came back to your zoning and planning staff, and I came back to your engineering. I said, now I'm putting all these improvements in. I have this little 1 acre piece that we've we made this little sliver, widened the road, put the improvements in. I'd like to divide that up. The home is old, it's dilapidated. I'd like to turn it into a 4-lot subdivision. And I like to do my subdivisions clean. I didn't want to go back and tear up the road again, so I asked permission to put in sewer and water. I got that permission. I gave them a little preliminary site layout showing a 4-lot subdivision. I got approval from your staff, and I got approval from engineering, and I even got it inspected by the city. For the last 10 years, I've come back every single year, sometimes twice a year, asking for your staff to approve a 4-lot subdivision. Every year for 10 years I've been turned down. In my 25-year history, I have never taken a subdivision to a county or to a city without asking for approval from your staff, a written approval from a staff going to planning commission. It's just against my grain. That's all. It's just simply against my grain. This is the first time in my history that I've got an actual written letter from planning staff that said they wouldn't approve it. About 18 months ago, 2 years ago, somebody decided within the city to rezone the portion of this property. I got a letter about a week before the meeting. I came to that meeting and told them my frustration. One, I didn't support the zone change they were looking for. Number two, the frustration that the city could do whatever they wanted to do, but for 10 years they would stop me. Tom Burdette pulled me aside after that meeting, knowing my frustration, and asked if I'd come meet with staff. Just over a year ago, I sat down with Tom Burdette, with a member of your engineering department, a couple other staff members, with my 4-lot subdivision, laid it out, and said, this is all I want to do. I want to clean up the site. This is the entrance to West Jordan City. This is the ugliest home in West Jordan City. It is dilapidated. I got a phone call from a neighbor either last night or the night before because some more people had broken into it. And he felt like we were squatters on it, and he called the police, and it's just an absolute eyesore. I want to improve the site. I want to make it look nice like I did with the River Oak subdivision, but I'm getting stymied along the way, and that's life, and life can be enjoyable, and I'm okay with that, but I would like to improve it. I came to that meeting, and I felt like the staff was very gracious to me. I showed them my 4-lot subdivision, and they said, Rob, we just can't support you on that. And I go, I recognize this. This has been 3 years now. So I did the best I could and said, what would you support? What can I do to get your support and get a written letter from the staff? And in that meeting, I was told if I would change it from a 4-lot subdivision to a 3-lot subdivision, I would be given a letter of approval from the staff that they would support it. I went back, I re-engineered the property. It didn't take much, but I had to resurvey it. And it took me a few months. I paid the fees, cost about $4,000 in just city fees, and then it cost a few $1,000s in engineering, and I submitted that. We came and had a meeting. I ended up being invited to meet with the mayor. I met with your engineering and your planning. I met with the city manager and showed them this. I put it on the agenda, and believe it or not, I got a letter back from staff that said we can no longer support this. And I thought, what's new? It was suggested at that point to me that I would turn this property to professional office. And if I turned the property to professional office, I would get a support from staff. Well, at that point, I didn't believe staff anymore. And I chose not to go that direction. Since then, I've never looked at that site as a site for professional office or commercial. My mind never went there. But I've been traveling back and forth to the meetings with the city for the past little while. And I've been going up and down Redwood, up and down 90th, and I'm now paying attention to your commercial property up there and what's going on. And I have buyers that will buy a 3-lot subdivision or a 4-lot subdivision right now. I have nobody that's interested in the commercial property, nobody knocking on my door for either professional offices or a big box retailer. I've talked to a couple of neighbors. I'm not going to speak on behalf of them, but I understand that if someone wanted to go commercial, there's still 1 or 2 homeowners that do not want to move. And so it would still be a blocked rezoning of a large area, not spot zoning. I asked the staff if they wanted me to turn it R18. If you go across 90th South to the north, that subdivision is in R18. The staff recommended I do it R112 to be consistent with what will be going on and what is in River Oaks. Whether it's an R18 or an R112, I don't care. Our homes will be larger homes, they'll be nicer homes. I would like to improve the site. I'd like to be done with this. I'd like to move on. I have no animosity. I have no ill feelings about it, but this has been a difficult process. I am an owner. I'm a third owner of a medium-sized engineering firm in Utah County. And we do stuff all over Salt Lake, we do stuff all over St. George. We have clients that have been with us and with one of our engineers for over 30 years. And when those clients come and ask us if we'll do engineering work in 2 cities in Utah, West Jordan and Saratoga Springs, we either turn them down or we will not give them a contract because we know how difficult it is to get a project through those 2 things. I'm a perfect, not a personal example of that, but before I walked out here to the meeting, I turned to our senior engineer and I said, what would you tell your very best client if he used to do a project in West Jordan City? What budget would you give him? And he said, I would double the budget and wouldn't guarantee it. So I thank you for the time. Any questions?
I think we were hoping to kind of hear from you the merits of the project itself, as opposed to the long history, if we could focus on that aspect of it.
Yeah, I can tell you a couple of things. The property, when I put in the improvements, I was asked by a few people if I would rent it out to them, and I chose not to because I figured I'd get it improved and torn down quickly. And immediately people went in and stripped out copper, stripped out appliances, stripped out all the electrical and plumbing. The house sat dilapidated and well run down. I've chose not to fix it up because I keep coming to the city once or twice a year to try to get it, a subdivision improved to build, but I'm being stymied by that, and that's the right of the city, and I respect that. I totally respect that. And so this is the entrance to your beautiful city. This is the entrance to some nice subdivisions along Hidden Peak Drive. And when people come into West Jordan City, unfortunately, they see a dilapidated home and a rundown home. I would like to get that fixed up. And I have buyers. This is less than 1 acre. It's continuous with zoning across the street or behind it. Again, I don't care if it's R18 or R112. I would prefer a 4-lot subdivision, but to be on the side of the staff, I said I'd change it to 3. But this will improve the coming right into the city. There are good neighbors there. It's a good neighborhood. There are good people there, and I need to get that improved and made nicer. And I'd like to do that.
We were made aware of an issue that was not covered in the staff packet just prior to this in our pre-meeting in regards to a sewer connection that would need to be made under 90th. Are you aware of that now?
I was 30 seconds as walking in the door as I sat down. You saw the engineer come. I've never heard of that before.
Well, we got about 3 minutes before you, so we are.
Yeah.
It came in late today, so.
Yeah, that and again, I did those improvements roughly 12 years ago, and this is the first I've heard of it. So
Wanted to make sure you were aware of engineering's notes on that. Any questions for the applicant? Doesn't look like we do at this point.
thanks for the opportunity to speak. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Ray?
Thank you. With that, maybe what we can do is just focus in on the uses of the property, what's being requested, and as you're looking at this, you'll just need to make a decision as to whether or not what is being requested here fits in with the grand scheme of the general plan what the city anticipates for the property, whether it's the best use for that location. This is the location of the property. River Oaks Apartments to the east, to the west and south. There are single-family homes, but they're mainly hobby farms. They're used for agricultural purposes at this point. To the north, it's developed out as a single-family residential property. The property abuts Hidden Peaks Drive. Back in, and I think I mentioned this in the pre-meeting, by way of some history on this property. It used to be zoned very well, at least on the future land use map. It was shown as very high density residential. And back in 2013, the city council had asked staff to take a look at the future land use map and find out if there are any properties that were designated as either high or very high density residential, and to take a look at those individual properties and just see if there were any other recommendations for land use. There were 2 properties that were looked at. One was up on Drake Lane off Redwood Road, and this piece of property that's outlined in yellow. It's about 9 acres. The subject property is just located on the east side of that. It's highlighted in red. At that time, what we did is, and I think some of you were here, we brought this issue to the Planning Commission. I believe that a couple of you were here when we talked about this. We presented some options to the Planning Commission. Those recommendations of the Planning Commission were forwarded to the City Council. And the City Council ultimately decided that a professional office land use was the best fit for this property. Based on some concerns that were expressed by residents, they didn't want any zoning to occur. So this zoning is still agricultural, but the future land use map shows it as professional office. And I think part of the reason that the City Council looked at it as professional office is because it is it's on a major arterial street. It's one of the main gateways into the city. So the question is whether or not residential uses along that east property line is what you want to see coming into the city, or what works for this piece of property. I think, as we mentioned in the staff report, if there was some kind of connection between for this property and then low density residential to the south, it might make some sense. But it's my understanding the adjoining property owners to the south just are not interested in changing it to anything different than what it is at this point. What would happen if the future land use map was changed is that you'd get a bit of an island as part of it. You get medium density residential to the north. It would be kind of surrounded by professional office, very high density to the east. I just don't think that that's a good fit, and I think that's why we've been looking so hard at professional office. This is the current zoning. It's zone A5 right now. A5 is considered a holding zone. That hasn't changed. And the zoning would be changed to A5 to R112G, which is what but again, it's on an island. There's some single family to the north, but it's across a huge street. So we don't see much of a linkage to that because of that disconnect. And just as a final note, this is the preliminary subdivision, the concept subdivision plat that was submitted. It shows 3 lots, as was talked about. There's the existing home on the front. This is kind of laying off to its side. And there would be 2 lots that would be access Hidden Peak Drive. But again, just to summarize, we go through the findings of the staff report and list some of the reasons why we just don't support the request. And again, it's one of the main gateways of the city. It's what the City Council had adopted back in 2014. They wanted to see this property is developed ultimately as professional office. So we were sticking to that recommendation.
Questions for staff? Commissioner Green?
So, if we, I guess I turn this on. If we allow the R112 in here, do we think, based on, and I know that we're talking about crystal balls here, do we think the property along Hidden Peak down towards the south would develop more as houses? Or do we think that it's going to be more of the professional office? I mean, if we start here with the 3, do we think it's going to extend on?
At some point, I think, let's see, I think you can see my cursor.
Yeah.
I see professional offices extending the full depth. That's certainly possible. I think anything south of about this point would develop ultimately as single family.
Yeah, and if you look at maybe the property owner map, you can see where you've got there's an opportunity once that, or as soon as this is right to develop, somebody could come in and inquire with negotiations with just a handful of property owners, most of this 9 acres. This property owner right here actually owns this property as well. And then this one obviously is very long and narrow piece. Something also to consider, there's a lot of grade. It really this property really drops down to Hidden Peak. In fact, the applicant, when he developed this subdivision to the south, had to do a pretty extensive retaining wall. So there's not a lot of connection nexus. So if you were to develop property down to the south of the subject property, you'd have to do a lot of excavating and a lot of earthwork in order to connect any driveways, any residential driveways to Hidden Peak. And so I don't know if it's that big or that feasible to expect to see, a continuation. While it makes sense looking at a two-dimensional map here tonight, when you get on the ground, it gets pretty interesting. So it would make more sense to develop this out as a full office park and not have to deal with the connection to Hidden Peak. It could be done, but again, it's how much do you want to spend to do it. So I don't know if that answers or helps you. Okay.
If we were to approve the rezone of that small spot, would that be spot zoning?
Well, maybe the attorney can chime in here too, but my understanding is that whereas in the past, the official spot zoning, as you referred to it, was, I think it was not even legal. That has since been stripped out. There's certainly no minimum district size for an R112G that he's asking for, as long as it can meet the lot and bulk standards. But
that is a correct statement of the law. The notion of spot zoning no longer exists in the state code. So this is a possibility that you could approve if you desire.
So with that hurdle, being gone, being eliminated, we just have to look at, okay, does this make sense for the community in the context of what you have there and what the city council has directed us that they expect to see in the future. I mean, in the future land use map, that's a 20, 25-year plan. It may not be right for professional office today, but long term, that's the vision that the elected officials have given to the city. So.
Any other questions for staff?
So, I'll ask, if we don't adopt the applicant's request, what do we do with the unsightly home that's sitting on the piece of property, and how long do we let it sit there until we allow something to occur?
Well, we do have general ordinances in place that if there's weeds or if it's a nuisance, then code enforcement can and has contacted the applicant to take care of that. As far as derelict buildings, I'm not that well versed in Title 8, or I think it's the municipal code, but we do have some standards that can be enforced if it's deemed a nuisance or if there's any safety concerns. But if that continues to be an issue, we can prepare to perhaps answer that question if the council wants to ask that question.
Commissioner Hanson?
Thank you. As we just learned, as well as the applicant, that the sewer is not available to the site. And 90th South being a UDOT road, it would mean boring underneath that road, at least to the center, into the sewer. He has already expressed the amount of money he had put into this. Is he willing to put that kind of money and first get UDOT approval to bore underneath 90th, because they won't allow it?
can you clarify what the question is? But I think that you've accurately stated this.
Does he fully understand that that is what his requirement would be, that he would have to bore underneath 90th, and would require you to approval?
That is what we have told him up to now. We can clarify that with him in the future.
Thank you.
We will then open up this item to the public. We did have one individual fill out a comment card. So we will allow that person to speak first. LeVar Burton.
I'm LeVar Burton. I live at 1091 West, 90 South. I live right next door to this Copley subdivision that's proposed to go in there. And I know Mr. Barrett has got quite a problem there. It's an eyesore, and I've been chasing transits out of there often. When the weeds get high, I call Mr. Barrett up there, and he sends somebody up to mow the weeds down because I'm afraid of the fire. But anyway, that's quite a problem he's got. But I've got a problem with this. It's going to be right on my east fence line. I have animals. And the size of those houses, they're not going to have much of a backyard, so they're going to be right by my fence. And when you have animals, you have smell, and you have flies. And as what's been mentioned here, you know, we met with this planning and zoning when we set up what West Jordan wanted in that area here 3 or 4 years ago. And it was decided that we was going to have office buildings in there, which is a good thing. But if we start breaking up this property, then developers come in there that wants quite a large piece. It's not going to be pleasing for them. And so I recommend that we leave it like it is and come up with something else. But those houses are going to be right close to my property line. I don't think it's a good thing. I know the city wants a landmark as they come into the city, and office buildings will be good in that area. And we've had a few developers in there talking to the landowners in there, but the deals have fallen through. And so we're hoping for that. But I feel for Mr. Barris, he's got quite a problem there, and he's got to do something with that house, because I don't want those people around there. You don't know what they're going to do, when they're going to break into your property. And I've called and talked to Mr. Barris. I asked him if this went through, if he'd be willing to put a privacy wall down there on my east line, and he says, no, I won't do that. He says, I can't afford it. And I said, that'd make it a lot better for me if this goes through. But I says, I'm not going to support it. And so I'm strongly against the city changing that zoning. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else who'd like to speak on this item? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Bring it back to the commission. Commissioner Skoski.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's a tough situation because I can see Mr. Barrett's point of view, and I can see that, you know, if I had a property like that and I was trying to make it better, I can see the frustration there. As for all the history with, you know, with the city and issues that he's dealt with, I can't speak to any of that. I wasn't here for that. So I appreciate the frustration, though, in trying to make something that works for the landowner. However, you know, when they did the 2014 general plan, the intention was to try to take the arterial routes and make them more feasible for a long-term planning project within our city, to make our city more functional overall. And he spent a lot of time working on that, and I feel like they did a really nice job with it. And I agree that if we start chopping these sections out, it's gonna create problems. And looking at the land piece right now, you could say, oh, there's derelict building and you know, we need a quick Band-Aid solution. But planning is slow, and especially overlay and redevelopment planning. But in the long run, patience, I feel, is gonna win out here. My opinion is that we shouldn't rezone this for a couple reasons outside of what's been discussed. One is just the general welfare and safety of the citizenry. If we put houses right there, right along the main arterial route, there's a high likelihood that there are going to be children in those houses. And I don't feel that it's a good precedent to be approving new houses along a very busy road like that, where kids are going to be out playing in the yard. Not to mention just the health issues of being that close to that many cars driving by constantly. I wouldn't want to live there. The lot size is nice, but the location is just not the right fit for this. I feel like we would be doing a disservice to someone who you know, lived there if we were to approve this. And that's just not a greater and better use, greater and best use for this property. So where on the one hand, I feel for the landowner right now because it doesn't fit his vision and he wants to do what he wants to do with it. But I really don't think that it would be a good solution for our city in the long run.
Commissioner Pack?
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And yes, basically what Commissioner Sikoski mentioned with Planning Commission and City Council, when we determined that professional office designation is more consistent with the goals of the general plan, it's the most appropriate use for the property. I'm grateful that Mr. Ferris wants to do business in West Jordan, and as Commissioner Sikoski said, feel badly for the long history of that. But as the staff packet mentions, a significant deviation such as changing the land use from professional office to a single-family residential seems to just backtrack from where we've been, especially in 2014 when we did look specifically at this parcel of property. It would be better to have single family as opposed to what's on there currently, but I think it's a short-term fix at the expense of long-term improvement and viability, and it's not the highest and best use. And to have large lots next to a very high density residential along the corridor there where we're trying to have more business, to me it just doesn't seem like the best fit for what's being proposed, in my opinion.
Commissioner Henry?
I'm actually kind of torn. 2 weeks ago, we talked about the commercial property out there on U-111, and I agree with you, Commissioner Sikoski. Sometimes good things come to those who wait, and patience is important. On the other hand, rarely do we get a developer who comes in and wants to put R112 in the city. And it particularly with some of the other developments we've seen that we're doing 10, 15 units per acre, that having 30-acre lots are in here, or about 30-acre lots, would be definitely an advantage. The difficulty that we see here is that it does create an island, and at what point in time does the professional office develop in there? Do we hold to that for the long term, so that we have a gateway to the city? And I don't know what the answer to that is. It's the same conundrum we had with the commercial stuff 2 weeks ago. So that's my thoughts. I mean, tend to agree with you, but I also hate to turn down, you know, R112 houses in the city when a lot of developers try to do R160 or whatever they try to put in, you know, for the zoning. So anyway, I don't know where I'm at yet, but we'll figure this out here.
Commissioner Hyder?
Thank you. It concerns me when someone comes in and feels like that we're difficult, we being West Jordan is one of the more difficult entities to work with. And I don't know how we get around that. I do know that my own experience, not with West Jordan, but knowing, being in the real estate business, I've heard and seen a lot of builders and developers who have basically complained about how hard it is to work with West Jordan, and that concerns me. True or not, it's a perception that we all have to deal with, and I agree with Commissioner Green in that we've been turning down all the small lot subdivisions in lieu of, well, where are 30-acre lots and big nice houses that make a statement that people want to live here and stay here. From that standpoint, it puts when you have a subdivision like that, granted it's for lots, but it does blend down into the other subdivision down there, and that's a darn nice subdivision. It's been there and has along the golf course, and the houses south of there and in that area all lend themselves well to the type of housing that I've heard discussed over the last 3 years I've been on the commission. So it's a difficult situation for everyone, but I tend to go along with the developer on this one because I feel like it will take care of an eyesore, one, and two, show that we have nice housing. I mean, it's a billboard in and of itself right there on 90th South if you put a nice large house on there. Future, we don't know what's going to happen coming down that road, but if there was to be residential along that road, it would blend back into there and come back to where the low density residential is already in there, and you could still blend in the professional office back in there as well. So those are my thoughts.
Commissioner Skoski?
Thank you. I don't know how many of you have been able to drive along 13th East over in Sandy, about 90th South. There are a bunch of houses along there that are like this, where the subdivision comes right out 13th East, and they don't face 13th East, they're just next to it. And most of those homes that are along there have, at their own expense, put large walls up to block noise and sound from the road, and many of them have also put huge berms in front of their property, just piles of dirt to try to block out sound and noise from the roadway. And I wonder if we're just opening the door for that type of situation. And when I see that, I think, man, that's some really poor planning, because those people bought that house with high expectations, whether the road was busy or not at the time. At that point, those homes were built next to something that was going to become a major arterial route. And when we ask the same question, then if that's the future for a property like this, do we want that as our billboard into West Jordan? Because I guarantee down the line, somebody's gonna put a big wall up, or they're gonna try to block out the road, or put something up to make a sound barrier. It's gonna be ugly. And, you know, good design and good planning, especially redevelopment, is difficult because of this very problem. You have multiple owners, parcel out land, and you're trying to get an overlay in there that works, but it doesn't pencil out for a professional office developer until you have a large enough piece that works for them. And by allowing this, by changing this right now, we could be, you know, really writing off somebody that may have their eye. I know it's an if, you know, but I'm just trying to think long term here, because the decisions that we make right now are going to affect the city for the next 30, 40 years. So, you know, and if we split that into 4 lots, and maybe the guy in the corner doesn't want to stay there, but the other 2 do, then we've created more of a problem for a future overlay of professional office space, rather than adjudicating a problem, you know, that could be mitigated right now for potential. So where you have these main arterial routes, it's better to stick to the plan and just go with that for now. And if that large piece eventually needs to be rezoned, then perhaps it will, but it will be rezoned as a unit rather than little bits and pieces.
Commissioner Hanson?
I am in agreement with what has been said. I understand, you know, it would be nice to get rid of that dilapidated house, because you do see it as you come up 90th. But as far as traffic goes, those apartments are all accessed down Hidden Peak. So it's not just the traffic that's going to be going through these 3 houses. It's the traffic that's going to be using those apartments, in and out of those apartments, which are very large. That to me is a safety thing. Also, I do have a great deal of sympathy for Mr. Ferris. I wasn't involved when he was having difficulty getting things through West Jordan. When I was on the council, it seemed like it went fairly easily through this body as well as the council. So that must have been, he said, it was several years ago. But I believe that we are creating a problem here. We put in 3 houses there. It's nice. Like you say, we don't get anybody offering 12,000 square foot lots very often. But I think that to the west of this is commercial. And I also have sympathy for Mr. Burton, who has animals. People who move next to animals complain. They complain about flies, they complain about the smell, they complain about the dust. Those animals were there first. But they make it miserable for the people who now own the homes, and for the people who have the animals. And so I just, you know, Mr. Ferris said he would not put up a large wall, which still doesn't protect from the smell of the flies. I just feel that this should remain in a professional office as one large group, or if we could do a large subdivision, that would be great also as an entry to our city. But just to cut out this small piece of property for 3 lots, adjacent to what is an agricultural use right now, is not the best use for this property. And it may take a while for professional office, but I think that eventually is what it is going to become. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Ray?
Do we have any idea what it would cost to fix the sewer problem that we're talking about? Ballpark, anyway?
It's probably too early to have a ballpark estimate for that cost. But I would just take in mind that UDOT does typically require boring under their roadways.
I don't have a direct answer to that, but the discussion about 90th and UDOT reminded me of a meeting that I attended last week that the commission should be aware of some information that was presented by UDOT. They're commissioning a study on major east-west routes through the Salt Lake Valley. 90th, 90th South, 70th South, those things that those roads that connect in with I-15, and at minimum, and again they're going to commission the study, but at minimum, 90th South will be expanded by at least 2 lanes through West Jordan, and that's just a temporary little bandage on this situation on getting people east-west to I-15. So this corridor is going to continue to see increase in traffic, and so I just wanted to present that information to the commission.
So do you think UDOT's gonna talk about widening there and taking property?
There's a good chance, yes.
Do they have an estimated time frame for those improvements, or?
No, it's the state, so they were reluctant to give time frames, but the study should be commissioned within the next, they said 18 months at the meeting, but studies, you know, it'll take time. But it's an ongoing issue. All you need to do is try to commute on 90th South, and you know exactly the frustrations that a lot of our residents face. So a lot of traffic, and that was one of the heavy things that we weighed when we were looking at changing the land use on this property is just the high volume of traffic with the noise and the air pollution that's associated with that traffic.
Thank you.
Commissioner Skoski?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to go ahead and make a motion, and because this is quasi-judicial and we have to base this on finding of fact, I'm just going to kind of run through this really fast before the motion. But finding B on page 3 is not met because it doesn't meet with the city's long-range vision and the general plan. Finding C on page 4 is not met because the property owner to the south isn't interested in the rezone. It is not compatible with the surrounding land uses. Finding D is not met because the proposed amendment does not constitute an overall improvement to the general land use map. And in this case, I feel that it's solely beneficial for the landowner and doesn't have a higher and best use. Let's see, finding E, the proposed amendment may adversely impact the neighborhood and community as a whole by significantly altering the acceptable land use patterns, specifically that of professional office space in the general plan. Criteria 1, the proposed amendment is not consistent with purposes, goals, and objectives and policies of the city's general plan. Criteria 2, the proposed amendment will not result in compatible land use relationships and may adversely affect adjacent properties. Criteria 3, the proposed amendment does not necessarily further or improve the general welfare of the citizens of the city. It would be better to improve this area as a cohesive single land use rather than an island residential. And then the opposed amendment does not further the public health, safety, or general welfare of the citizens of the city, specifically because of the reasons that I mentioned earlier by placing residential homes adjacent to an arterial street. So because of all of those, based on the findings set forth in the staff report and upon what we've discussed tonight, I move that the Planning Commission forward a negative recommendation to the City Council to amend the future land use map for 0.88 acres from professional office to low density residential on property generally located at 1085 West, 90th South.
Second. Motion by Commissioner Skoski, second by Commissioner Quinn. Any discussion to the motion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Motion carries 6-1.
And then, based on the findings set forth in the staff report and upon evidence and explanations received today, I move that the Planning Commission forward a negative recommendation to the City Council to rezone approximately 0.88 acres of property generally located at 1085 West, 90th South from A5 agricultural 5-acre lots to R112 half single-family residential, 12,000 square foot minimum lots.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Sikoski, seconded by Commissioner Quinn. Discussion to that motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Motion carries 6-1. Which concludes our agenda for this evening. Anything else we need to discuss? The Commissioner Pack will be attending tomorrow night for the city council meeting.
Yes, that's correct, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Commissioner Pack?
Well, thank you. I just wanted to make sure that we officially recognize your 6 years of service on the Planning Commission ending with this meeting, and also Bill Heiner's 3 years of service. Thank you for your professionalism and friendship.
Thank you all. I'll pontificate for just a moment. I don't want to keep you guys too late, but I realized as I was kind of driving up here tonight, you know, the culmination, 6 years. I've been living in West Jordan for 8.5 years now, and I've served on a city committee of some kind for 8 of that. I blame the late Commissioner Jim Lems, who forced me into public service when I wasn't getting what I wanted from city council. And here I am 8 years later, so it's been quite a ride. 6 years of being involved in all this, you get to drive around town. It's pretty cool to see. Hey, I had a hand in that, and I had a hand in that, and I had a hand in that. And dang it, I told him not to put that in. But, it is what it is. So thank you all. It's I think I learned something from every member of the commission here and staff and everybody that attends these meetings every night I'm here. So it's going to be cool. I doubt you're through with me yet. I've still got access to your agenda, so behave yourselves, or you might see me on the other side of that microphone. So it's been 7 years since I've stood there and complained about something, but maybe it's time to practice some more.
Yeah.
So stand by.
I'd just like to say that as a 30-year resident of West Jordan, it's been a real pleasure being able to volunteer finally after all these years. For the last 7 or 8 years, I've been involved with various committees, with Commissioner Pack on the Rodeo Committee, and still on the Board of Adjustment Committee, and I appreciate that. But what comes to my mind today, thinking about the last 3 years, is gratitude, and gratitude for the staff, gratitude for the commissioners, and gratitude for the city for the opportunity to work, to been able to volunteer. I know that we serve at the pleasure of the commissioners, but I just wanted to say that it's really been my pleasure, and I appreciate the opportunity and have enjoyed the relationships. And you won't see that this isn't the last of me either. We'll be a force together, so thank you.
That's what we need in government.
Well, I can say something. I spent quite a few years presenting to a planning commission and the city council. And this one has been a pleasure, because everybody has their own ideas and they express them, and it isn't just a rubber stamp, and I appreciate that, because I didn't at times see that in a previous place of employment. And so I think that's great for the city, that everybody, you know, we don't vote alike, we express our own opinions, and they're all different. And I think that that's what makes the city good. I've said many times where Scott and Ray said, and I know how hard that is, because you're trying to get your point across, and you're not getting it across, they're not buying it. So I really do appreciate the year that I have been here, and 2 years to go, if I last that long, or they don't hire me or something. You know? But, I do appreciate it, and I appreciate both you and Bill.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, Dan and Bill, on behalf of the staff, we want to thank you for your remarkable service. We're going to miss your leadership and your insight. your professional way that you carry yourself, even if you disagree with us, and vice versa. It's always been mutually respectable, and we definitely miss you, but we hope that you're not strangers either. So.
Probably not.
Okay, good.
Well, I'm just gonna say I'm gonna miss you, and in order to save Julie from typing anymore, I'm gonna move that we adjourn.
Second.
Motion to adjourn. Anybody opposed to that? I'm gonna use the gavel. You guys stand adjourned until I believe January 3rd, 2017.